So good morning and welcome, everyone. In a moment, I'm going to hand the floor to Joe Lynham, our moderator, to make the introductions. But before I do so, I'm Matthew Willis. I'm a partner at Fourtold, an advocacy and communications business. We're delighted to participate in the Ideas Festival and to convene this event on digital skills. It's a critical topic underpinning so many of the policy challenges and ambitions at the moment that we really thought it deserved having a light shone in its own right at this festival. So thank you to my colleagues at Fourtold for organising this. Thanks to OPP for putting on the stage, and of course thank you to the distinguished panel we've got and to all of our audience for turning up. And we've got a packed lineup. So without further ado, over to you, Joe. And I'm gonna head off to save a space here for our full panel.
Thank you very much, Matthew. In reality, he's going off to get himself a gin and tonic after all the stress of preparation for this session. So enjoy that, Matthew. Matthew Willis, their partner with Fourtold. He's already again to this thought leadership session. The title of the session is Digital Skills, Bridging the Gap. My name is Joe Lynham, and I present a program on the BBC World Service called The Newsroom. And before that, I was a business and economics correspondent and focused a lot on the economy and the Brexit crisis and the financial crisis and you name the crisis. And I hope all of you are keeping well. I know this has been a very testing time for millions of Europeans. I hope you have not been affected by this virus, but I know tens of thousands of us have suffered and some have died. And I wish you all well at this awful time. What the COVID-19 crisis has shown us, though, during lockdown is the digital divide. It has highlighted the gap between those who have the skills to progress in the 21st century and continue learning and continue working, and those who do not. From a very personal point of view, I was lucky. During lockdown, my kids had access to a laptop to continue with their schoolwork while mommy and daddy continued to work from home during that time. Most people are not that lucky. So we'd like to talk about making everybody able to continue to work and live in this 21st century, especially if these lockdowns continue as we expect them to do for another while yet. We have some pretty important people who know a lot about this and how to bridge the digital divide. We have a former European Commissioner for Health is going to join us. We have an MEP who specializes in this area. We have three of the biggest companies in the world, Vodafone and Randstad. They are joining us as well. We'll open it up to you guys out there once we've let our panel speak and say a few words. So you have done lockdown 6 months. You're probably familiar with how Zoom and its equivalents work. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see the chat functionality. Well, I'd like you to click that if you've got a question. But once you've clicked chat, please click session, not event. Because if you want to post a question and you click event, everybody who's logged in to this OPP session will see your question and they may not know the context for it. So click session, post your question. Remember, as they say in Scotland, shy children get nae sweets. You think you will get an opportunity to ask a question to MEPs and key people within the Commission. You won't get one again. This is a really good chance to ask your question about the digital divide. If I see it and if it's not defamatory, I will try and put it to the panel. So without further ado, I'm going to go to Victor Negrescu, who is an MEP who he's the Vice Chair of the Culture Committee, European Parliament, and he's a rapporteur for the Culture Committee's report on the EU's digital education. He's going to have a lot to say. We will, in a short few minutes, be speaking to Alison Crabb from the European Commission about the regulatory side. But first of all, Victor Negrescu, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Joe, and nice to see you all. It's really a festival of ideas because we are going to try to reach this important topic and try to show what is actually happening at European level. And like you have said very well, these are difficult times for everyone, but difficult times for education, especially, like you have mentioned, but also in the same time, a moment where we really identify the needs that we currently have across the world. And digital skills are a specific and key element that needs to be pushed forward at a global level, and especially at European level. Because for many years, we are speaking about digital skills, but we are not doing enough. We have a lot of documents that have been released at European level. We have agendas, we have roadmaps, we have key directions, but more needs to happen. And this has to be an inclusive, let's say, direction that has to be identified at European level. Because if we look at statistics, those differences really exist at European level. We have countries that have managed to digitalize their education with 90% of their kids that have attended school in digital forms in current times. But we have other countries, like my own country, Romania, where 1/3 of Romanian kids didn't have access to education because they didn't have access to digital infrastructure or didn't have access to internet. And again, we are really proud of speaking about the fact that Europe is on the front end of internet connections, but we did it really badly in some part of Europe. So therefore, we need to do more. In the European Parliament, at the beginning of the crisis, we addressed this issue. We made an open call that was supported by many MEPs from different political groups, but also experts and highly prominent personalities in the field of education. And we tried to raise this issue at European level because, you know, education is dealt more at national level, but we want an European answer to it. And this European answer has to be very clear and focused on specific reactions and specific actions that have to be brought forward when it comes to dealing with this issue at European level. So we have pushed forward a pilot project that supports communities that do not have access to internet. We have also pushed forward a preparatory action that is financed by the European Union, supporting the development of specific infrastructure in the field, especially European infrastructure. And we tried to work with different stakeholders in the field. And what I did myself, because I really wanted to act, is that I built a European tablet, an educational tablet, and a tablet that is fitted for education, and that is being used by hundreds of kids right now across Europe. Because really, it's about acting when we refer to dealing with the digital gaps existing at European level. But of course, if we want to do that, we have to really, of course, highlight what we can do at European level. So first of all, we are launching a relaunch plan at European level. And if you look at the documents, for instance, there are just 4 references to education and a couple of references to digital skills, but no concrete ways of doing so. So we are giving money to countries, which is normal, and I really support that, but we are not creating a European plan on how we are dealing with this issue, how we are going to upskill our citizens, how we are going to invest in digital education, how we are going to develop digital skills. We are just mentioning ideas, but we are not doing more on that. In the same time, the new MFF that has been proposed by the European Council comes up with cuts on the Erasmus program, cuts that were not supposed to happen because this program is really efficient at European level. And in the same time, the Digital Europe program that was supposed to be very visible, more prominent, with more resources for it, has faced some cuts also at the Council level. So in the European Parliament, we are not supporting that. And we really want a clear allocation for digital skills and for education. We want, for instance, 10% of the European Union relaunch plan that should go to training people, upskilling people, education. This has to be a clear direction if we want to come up with this crisis in a positive way. We want the common benchmarks. We want a clear roadmap. We want that in the European semester format, very clearly highlighted, because if we want to really reduce the gaps, we really have to follow that through across regions, across Europe, but we also have to act at global level because Europe has to be a global actor. We have to identify the clear directions and which skills we want to bring forward, because digital skills are not about just using the computer. They are present everywhere. It's daily skills, and we have to make sure that everyone has access to them. For instance, for vocational training, we sometimes forget that it is hard to be digitalized, so we need to invest. And we need clearly, and this is my last idea, we need at European level a European education area, but we also need a European digital area that really works. Not only the digital market, but really a digital area where we are working together in reducing the gaps, in acting very concretely, in moving forward, because this pandemic has shown us that we are not doing that. So those inegalities are costing us a lot. The OECD has released yesterday a report showing how much this has cost us. The fact that we don't have skilled people, the fact that our educational systems were not digitalized. This means money. That money is going to cost everyone. This means an impact on our economies, but also on our societies and our democracies. So therefore, my call today, and I'm certain that my colleagues are going to support that, is to really do more together and come up with new ideas like the tablet or other ideas, because this is the festival of ideas. So I'm really happy to hear everyone, and I will certainly introduce your nice ideas in my initiatives in the European Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. And I'm certainly looking for more about the European tablet and how it's going to be made and how it's going to be distributed, if it is made, and how people get their hands on it. I'm going to turn to the European Commission now, the regulator in all things of trying to bridge the skills gap, the digital skills gap. And I see in the corner of my eye, Alison Crabb, who is the head of Unit 4 Skills and Qualifications at DG Employ or DG EMPL. I don't know, how do you, DG Employ? I don't know what you say. How do you say it? Alison, good morning and welcome, and let's hear your thoughts.
Thanks very much, Joe. Good morning, and good morning to everyone. We're glad to join the festival. And I think it's it's super topical that this is on the agenda right now. All of us have had our own experiences of the last 6 months of being propelled into life online. And as you said in introduction, Joe, what this has done is point up certainly a lot of the issues that have been rumbling in the background around inequalities and the digital skills gap. This has been propelled centre stage in the last 6 months or so. So the time is certainly right to be talking about it. The figures, I was looking into the little background paper for this session, and the figures tell their own story, and it's actually hard to grasp when we look at the figure that more than 40% of adults in Europe don't have basic digital skills. And I think that's worth thinking about for a moment. If we look around, our own environments, our own countries, our own regions, on the average, more than 40% don't have basic digital skills. 17%, almost 2 in 10, have no digital skills at all. So not able to interact with the internet, not able to use email, not able to use social media. And I think the consequences are clear. There are economic consequences, and I guess we'll hear a lot about that in the panel this morning from our business colleagues. And there's social consequences. So for both of those reasons, of course, we need to get moving together at European level and see what we can do about this. We have just put forward, the Commission has just put forward a target by 2025 of getting up to 70% percentage of adults in Europe who have at least basic digital skills. Now that may not sound very, very exciting. You might be asking yourself, well, why is it not 100% ambition? But going from today's starting point, I think 70% would already be a good ambition to reach in the next 5 years. And the ideas that I want to share this morning is just 2 ideas maybe to feed into the discussion that's going to follow. The $1 million question, the €1 million question literally is, how are we going to get there? It's nice to have this ambition, but what can we do at European level together to get there? And I think there's two ideas that I would like to put forward. One is really the need to look throughout the whole lifelong learning chain, if I call it that. So there's been a lot of focus in the media recently, of course, around the challenges of schooling, homeschooling, getting kids access to both the devices that they need to keep learning, but also the staff expertise. A lot is being asked of education staff right now. These are people who typically would go to a classroom to teach, and suddenly they're having to find themselves dispensing. I wouldn't even call it distance learning. I think we could call it emergency remote teaching in a lot of cases. So there's been a lot of focus on that end of the spectrum. But actually, when we look at the older age cohort and the huge mass of people in the labour market, I think there we have a really tough nut to crack. How are we going to get adults learning, and particularly today's topic, obviously digital skills, when you're in a workplace, whatever that workplace might look like, maybe it's now your home, how are we going to tackle that? And the second idea is around making sure that the skills that people build up are actually ones that they can use for employability and use for jobs. So training is one thing. We have a long tradition at EU level of working together to help support training activities. And now I think we have a great opportunity to take a step back and look together with both public and private players. What type of training is it that people really need and want on the labour market for today's jobs, for tomorrow's jobs, and how can we capture what we call skills intelligence around that? How do we know what these skills are? Who needs to talk together and share that information? So that's, I think I'll just leave it there in intro. I know there's a lot we could, a lot that we'll discuss around this, but maybe two key messages from my side. The whole lifelong learning chain, it's about early learning and also learning right throughout your professional life, and secondly making sure that the skills that you're investing your time and resources in are the ones that you can actually put to use on the labour market. So skilling for jobs today and tomorrow.
Alison, thank you very much. We will be coming to the three amigos, the three big companies in due course, Randstad, Johnson&Johnson and Vodafone. But for now, I'm going to go to the former Health and Food Safety Commissioner, Vytenis Andriukaitis from Lithuania. He's now the special envoy for universal health coverage for the WHO, the World Health Organization's European region. Vytenis, digital skills about kind of education. Talk to me about how bad the problem is when it comes to health, the digital gap between those who have it and those who do not have it. And what can we do? Vytenis.
Yes, Joe, thank you very much indeed. You know, you rightly mentioned about digital health issues. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has seen an unprecedented call for the digital technologies to ensure, first of all, continuity of care. Can you imagine? We lost a lot of people. We lost a lot of people because we do not have possibilities to continue in our care, to improve quality, and of course also to improve autonomy of those people to manage themselves, speaking about their health status. We need to understand that smooth flow of information between different healthcare and care system was challenged by the situation. We all spoke about lack of solidarity between member states. Why? Because communication between member states was so, weak from the beginning of the crisis, and especially possibilities to use digital technologies in communication and management were so high from technical point of view, but from organizational point of view, from interoperability between member states, it was not so high. And of course, now let's think about empowerment of people through digital health, because it's digital skills. It's not only about possibilities to develop skills, but also about possibilities to improve people possibilities to manage their health status. And of course, we need to see how can we provide technical and political policy guidance and expertise on the safety and efficacy of digital health solutions. Of course, also speaking about the preservation of health equity, gender equity, human rights as core values in care and QS systems, and of course also to review the use gaps and efficacy of digital health solutions deployed in response of different challenges, especially speaking about pandemic challenges. And we can think about possibilities. How can we develop, for example, some European roadmap for digitalization of healthcare and care systems as a blueprint for the design of national health care and social care architecture. And of course, also speaking about possibilities to develop more broad network between primary care, secondary care, tertiary care within every member state. Just Victor just rightly mentioned about situation on the ground. But when we are speaking about situation on the ground in Lithuania, in Romania, in Greece, in Spain, we can understand how it is big gap using digital technologies in area of digital health. Because it's not only about skills, it's about possibilities now to act and to ask member states to do much more. May you know that in previous time, European Commission launched such so-called European Reference Network. Of course, such network was possible only using IT tools, using interoperability platform and joining more than 300 hospitals around the European Union in one big network. Thousands of units now are connected with each other, addressing European reference in European reference network, addressing rare diseases. But when we're speaking now about oncology, about possibilities to protect people's health, without digital technologies, which should be, disseminated broadly within different member states, we have no chance to move forward. I am thinking about e-hospital. I am thinking about e-primary care facilities. I am thinking about prescriptions. Look how many issues are now in our hands if we will change situation on the ground. I am thinking about possibilities to develop, for example, so big EU collider on health, for example, inviting all digital technologies companies to put our efforts and really to change situation, because now in front of COVID, we have new normal. New normal is impossible to develop new normal without digital tools. Now our video conference is a good example. How can we, show practical possibilities of digital health? And of course, flagship initiative, which was just proposed from WHO, European Bureau, Dr. Hans Kluge has idea to develop flagship initiative, which should be called Empowering Through Digital Health. Let's discuss about it. Let's ask companies and all actors together to support to develop such flagship initiative. We need, of course, to develop and build consensus on a European health data governance framework through, for example, like Charter of European Values and so on. Not only speaking about EU, but thinking about European region as a whole, our neighbors, our Eastern European partnership, our Central Asian partnership. We need to think about a situation in the whole European region. And of course, I think that now is good time to speak about empowerment through digital health, keeping in mind possibilities to address big digital skills gaps between different parts of our society.
Perfect. Vytenis, thank you very much. You gave us a lot of meat to chew on there. I know I would like to talk to Joe Griffin from Vodafone about e-hospitals and e-prescription, e-whatever. Joe, I'll come to you in a moment if I may. I'm now going to go to Angel Martín, who is with Johnson&Johnson. He's the Director of Medical Technologies for the Europe, Middle East and Africa, I believe. Angel, I don't know whereabouts. Are you in Spain at the moment, Angel? You need to turn on your microphone. You need to unmute yourself. Now, Angel, press the microphone. We can't hear you, Angel. Talk, Angel, otherwise we won't know if you're actually saying something. No, microphone is not on. We are going to skip Angel for now. Please, at the bottom of your screen, there is a microphone. If you see a red line going through the microphone, that means you won't be heard. I'm going to go to Joe Griffin because I can't. Health, who is Senior Manager of Sustainability Strategy at Vodafone. Joe, hopefully we can see and hear you. Address some of the issues raised by former Commissioner Andriukaitis there about e-hospitals, e-prescriptions, and all that other stuff. Joe.
Yeah, no, I think my first to all three speakers that we've had so far, and Dennis mentioned it there, is around the new normal. We need to kind of start to consider that the new normal is actually the digital society, and this is something that we've been talking about for ages, as Victor mentioned, and there's many papers about it. But I think we need to face the reality that we're in it now. It is happening, and we're not prepared. And the digital society is still very unequal. And I think that's really apparent when we think about the health system and the education system and how we've had to pivot our services. As individuals, we've had to upskill. And I think, you know, what COVID has shown us and the pandemic has shown us is the speed in which we can adapt. So, I mean, one of the things that we've had to do at Vodafone, as we've seen the massive increase in data traffic, up to 50% in some markets, much of which driven by education and health, is we've had to accelerate the addition of 4 terabytes of data capacity to our network. You know, in order to adapt, support the healthcare system, ensure that we can have adequate infrastructure in order that patients and healthcare workers can use the system. You know, we can, as a company ourselves, do a lot in providing intelligence around what digital skills are required. I think Alison mentioned that skills intelligence. And this is something that we've been working on in terms of those kind of skills for employability and helping particularly young people understand what skills will be needed in the future digital, well, in the now present digital society. And a lot of these skills are, again, very much focused towards supporting systems like healthcare. I think we've got a long way to go. As I said, the digital society is now upon us, and we're not ready, and it's still unequal. And I think, you know, I think what we need is kind of to work across a multilateral system. We need the Commission, we need businesses like ourselves, we need the healthcare providers to really, you know, work closely to actually find actions that we can deliver quickly in order to overcome some of the barriers that we're still feeling that are my colleague kind of presented there.
Okay, Joe, thank you for your thoughts. We still don't have Angel back fully. Angel, are you there? Angel, can you hear us?
I think I'm there, but
yeah, you're there.
Hear you. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'll just go back to
Brilliant.
the question I put to you. We were talking to Vytenis about digital health, and you and Johnson&Johnson have some pretty strong thoughts on that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and actually, I think with Dennis and Alison, it's a hard job actually to follow up and say something, I would say, more insightful, because I think they were spot on about the big challenges and the ways forward. And the way we see it at Johnson&Johnson, very similarly to what has been said before, goes about both the how and the what. I think on the what, I like pretty much what Alison said, which is about we need to have more hands-on knowledge that people and professionals can apply immediately, as opposed to knowledge that will stay on the shelves, because it's proven really that the retention of knowledge is higher when this knowledge can be applied directly. And when it comes to digital, there is I think no doubt for here everyone that this knowledge is evolving, the skill sets is constantly evolving. So we need to have educational systems which are a bit more liquid in terms of delivering that knowledge. So I think that will be probably my first message. And I think in there, I think there needs to be a deep reflection, not only I would say for educational systems at large, but also academic knowledge, academic teaching, and university. I mean, the European Association of Medical Students actually already highlighted that they were or less hours a month on e-health, which is quite poor if you consider that that's going to be mostly their environment in the future. And we're talking about the future doctors and nurses. So I think there is a reflection here. We need to have a deep thinking about how we can change our educational systems. And I think the member states took a broad number of measures actually trying to bridge that gap with COVID. Obviously, it's hard to really address the issue, but I would like to underline something that Vytenis has mentioned, which is the access to care. And now, if everything is moving to digital, we need to really think seriously whether people have access to that care, to digital healthcare, because that's a basic right. And if we're moving to that because of COVID or because of future systems may look like that, we need to really, again, think whether really people are having access to that basic right. So I think, again, the issue of connectivity, we need to think about also what happens in the rural areas. There needs to be, again, more consideration how we address that. And maybe the final point I would like to raise, it's on how we deliver the knowledge. I mean, at J&J, we have something which is known as the J&J Institute. We have one location in Germany where we train 3,000 surgeons per year. And now this has exponentially increased because of COVID. So right now we have online platforms. We are now training surgeons. We're using virtual reality, also simulation systems. So now there is a new way of delivering knowledge. And again, linked to all the previous comments, we need to think how we can improve. And that's not the role for a J&J or even these other companies who are present here. I think it's a collaborative effort, right? It's a collective effort we need to do. And in that sense, I'm also thinking how actually, for example, medical centers and hospitals are collaborating in training and upskilling. Then maybe there are an opportunity actually to broaden our reach in terms of skills.
Thank you.
Those will be my initial thoughts, to share with you.
Well, I'm delighted that we got you back that time. Can I go to our Feyenoord fan, our friend in Rotterdam, Remco Brouwer from Randstad. Goedemorgen, Remco. Alison from the European Commission mentioned a little bit earlier that one challenge was getting employees to want to upskill their digital skills. What kind of incentives would you like to see, Remco, from the Randstad as one of the biggest employment agencies in the world?
Well, it's a very interesting case actually, because as you perhaps know, so we are in 39 countries and we employ, well, pre-COVID, more than 700,000 people on a daily basis. And we are doing a lot of experiments to bridge the gap between the markets and to find more meaningful work for more people. And what we do see, so we recently launched a couple of initiatives in Holland. We just made a big plea that we will skill up 10,000 people for free, right? If they would only come to us. In the US, we did the same with 40,000. And the fact is that some people jump on that, but a lot of people actually don't, right? So the fact that a lot of what you would call blue collar workers actually need more help and need more help to find even education. They are not on the lookout, and it is an assumption that creating these sort of programs will automatically solve the problem, right? So we're doing a lot of experiments. We do see that professionals or white collar workers, if you give them a tailored option of trainings, for example, to follow, they will all jump on it. But for blue collars, it's really a custom job that we need to do. I'm responsible in Randstad for all the data and the data strategy. The other thing that I see very clearly in my job is that we need to educate everyone in the world, but also Europe as a region, to ask the questions better, right? So we come from a world where we try to match people based on their job titles, right? And to be frank, in our experience, we see that most vacancies that are written are a little bit vague, and sometimes there is stuff in there that's being asked that is not really needed on the job, limiting the amount of candidates a lot that could go for the job. And at the same time, we see resumes on the other side with talents that are vague as well. A lot of people don't know which jobs they could qualify for, right? So we are spending a lot of effort at the moment using our digital skills and data science to help us enrich all these profiles, asking the right questions, and come to people and say, do you know that if you would also have this diploma, you know, this opens up 5 new jobs for you that you might not have thought of. At the same time with employers, you know, if you drop this one requirement, right, that you anyway almost don't need, you suddenly open yourself up to thousands of job workers that have skill that might even be cheaper for you, right? So I think we need to get a lot smarter and a lot more scientific on how to treat vacancies and how to treat resumes going forward. It needs to be much more skills-centric rather than jobs title-centric. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. And it's a very interesting point that employers and employees need to think about how they sell themselves. We'll come back to that, Remco. It's a really good point. I'm going to go to Chris Ruff now from Digital Europe to continue that issue about the digital divide and getting people from disadvantaged backgrounds to get more trainings. As you know, the phrase in English is you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot force the horse to drink the bloody water. How does Digital Europe and its associated companies help?
Well, I think digital skills is such a huge issue, as we've kind of seen today, and I think it's sometimes helpful to divide it into three parts. You have the very basic skills, you have the schools, the generations of the future, and you have the kind of lifelong learning aspect, was what Remco was touching on there. And this is an issue which unites all of our members. Digital skills, from the very big and the very small. Digital Europe represents 35,000 companies in many different sectors, and many different companies are digitalizing. And seeing as we've heard of three large companies, I maybe just want to touch on another issue, which is about digital skills and small and medium-sized enterprises, because I think one of the big gaps we saw in the crisis, especially in the lockdown, was that those small businesses that were digitized or digitally enabled, able to move activities online, were the ones that have survived the best, right? So this is a kind of gap which is emerging here. And that doesn't just mean you're able to sell your products online. It could mean internal practices. If you've been used to doing everything on paper and you can't come to the office and you can't meet each other, everything from HR, signing contracts, and suddenly your business will grind to a halt. So this is an area which I think is of huge importance. And if we look at maybe advanced skills, small and medium-sized companies, only 8%, according to the European Commission, only 8% are using, tapping into big data at the moment, which is one of the huge potential areas of the future where growth is going to happen. And so small companies need to be able to employ the right people that can help them tap into these things. And I just wanted to make that point. And then I wanted to touch on something that Mr. Negrescu, MEP, said about the fact that, Digital Europe, we were thrilled to see that digital alongside green was one of the two twin ambitions for the Commission and the European Council for the COVID recovery. It's fantastic, but the problem is, just as Mr. Negrescu said, is that you can say you're into digital, but I think what a lot of people are telling us is that, what do we spend it on then? So we know we need to spend the money on digital, we're on board, but give us the ideas. And luckily we've been canvassing our members recently, and we'll publish something in the next month with ideas, basically, both what's going on the ground already, but also some bigger visionary ideas for Europe as well. And the good news is that a lot of the stuff we need to do is already being done on smaller scales in different parts of Europe, right? So we need to, so part of this guide is to say, look at what's being done, and you could do that too in your country or in your village or in your town or whatever. And just to give a couple of examples, I think if we're looking at making sure that small businesses have the right laptops and hardware and things. For example, in Germany, there's a scheme to give vouchers for small companies to buy this kind of thing. We have, on the other hand, we have many of our companies helping to design curricula in universities on kind of issues such as cloud computing or quantum and things like that, which the public sector maybe takes a little bit of time to catch up. Connectivity in schools, this is an important thing so that pupils, if they have to stay at home, they can follow the lectures, and teachers can also use some of these more innovative collaborative tools. So we have a scheme, the European Union has a scheme for Wi-Fi in small towns. This is something that could be scaled up and put into schools. And just finally, as a kind of visionary idea, which touches on what some people have already mentioned, is this idea that we need to know what the skills are that we need in 5 years. So it's not just for now, the market is evolving so quickly. How do we know that? And this is something where I know that's going to be a big part of the Commission's plan as well. And this is something where the industry would love to help. And it's already being done on a smaller scale in Belgium. For example, our Belgian National Trade Association, Agoria, is looking at using artificial intelligence to kind of map where the jobs might be, get in touch with the different partners, the schools, the employers, everybody, and then make sure that people have the right skills for the future. So the good news is a lot of the projects we need to do are already being done on a smaller scale, but we need that money, we need the investment, and that's so important in the recovery plan.
Very much, Chris. I'm going to go back to Alison, if you're there. Alison, one of the questions that we've just got in the chat from Ludo van Berkel is, free internet access should be a basic human right. How wrong or how dreamy is that?
I think it's I was going to say I think it's a beautiful dream. That sounds very fluffy. First thing to say is it's not really the sort of field that the Commission is most active in. What I wanted to pick up on, though, is perhaps related to some of what Joe and Remco were and I would say to take a kind of a positive look at this. Actually, we know a lot about what works, and I think it's easy when we talk about digital skills. And I fell into the trap myself earlier. You know, we talk about the challenges of the lacking basic skills, bottlenecks in the ICT skills market, etc., etc. But actually, we know a lot about what already works in terms of upskilling and reskilling. And I've just posted in the chat there a link to a site with some interesting examples from different countries that are worth digging into. The other thing I wanted to say, and I was coming back to maybe, Victor, to your first remarks about the budget. And I think, you know, I've been working around skills and education and training issues for about 20 years now, and we're discussing the same topics for a long time, of course. They're hard nuts to crack. Lifelong learning is not an easy one to put into practice. But what is maybe different and gives me a bit of hope this time round is the very serious money out there for the period to come to help the recovery package, basically the post-COVID recovery package, termed the Recovery and Resilience Facility in EU jargon. And that is really very, very big money, very serious money, around 750 billion in grants and loans. And as much of that as possible, of course, from the perspective of my my department, should be directed to investing in human capital, investing in people's skills. The decision will be with member states, for sure. Each member state is in its own situation, it has its own challenges. But there's actually a lot of advice, a lot of collaboration, a lot of experience sharing that we can do to make sure that as much of that money as possible is being well invested in people and their skills. So looking ahead, you know, we're still grappling with issues that are tough ones to crack, getting people into learning. But there's money there and there's experience there. I think that would be my forward-looking message.
Thank you very much, Alison. And I'm just going to ask our panelists to go straight to the chorus when it comes to their answers, because we're very tight on time. As the great philosophers from Sweden, Roxette, said, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus." I'm going to go back to Victor Negrescu, who is the Vice Chairman of the Culture Committee and the Rapporteur for the European Parliament on the EU Digital Education Strategy. Tell us about the gaps between the member states, Victor, i.e. some member states have a much bigger digital gap than other member states. And what do you do about it? Because this is a national government competency, I presume.
It's a national competence, but of course, I think we can do more together. Look, we have this initiative on European universities that has worked very well. So it's clear that there are solutions that can be brought forward together. What is important is to tackle rightly the issue. There are different types of gaps in terms of access to infrastructure, to devices, to internet, but there is also a gap in terms of quality education, with types of quality digital education in terms of, again, access to professors that are skilled or not. So therefore, we have to tackle all of those issues. So really, we need a clear agenda. 5 years, we can reduce the gaps in terms of access. It will take us 10 years to reduce the gaps in terms of quality. We need to work with the private stakeholders, with NGOs, with local authorities, with the professors, like we have said, with the parents that we sometimes forget, and we notice how important our parents, especially in the pandemic times. We need to finance that. Alison is right. We have a lot of money in the relaunch plan, but the money is not for human capital. It's not for education and digital skills. We only mentioned that, but we need clear targets. We said we have to tell member states, look, the money is for that as well. Spend it in this direction if we want to reduce the gaps. And this is our call, and I strongly support it. And again, like I said, you had the question on having the internet as a basic human right. I think it's about having a public good, and we have to work again with the private stakeholders. We want 5G everywhere. We need to invest in 5G. We need to put the money where we want it to develop. So therefore, we have to do more on that. And I think the European Parliament can be a great partner in pushing forward these important directions.
Okay, Vytenis, Andriukaitis, thank you very much for standing by. Based on what you've heard thus far, are you more or less concerned that digital health is going to be an issue which we will focus on, which we will look at, or is it going to be secondary and slightly less important to digital skills? Unmute your microphone there, Vytenis.
Speaking, I think that digital skills is like to say, second-hand issue in all our discussions. First of all, let me tell you what I see. I see a lot of silo mentality around different actors, between different actors. Please look, when we speak about digital skills and jobs coalition. Can you imagine digital skills and jobs coalition when you have people with bad health conditions? That, of course, is interrelated. We need to understand now that main problem, how can we coordinate different our activities, keeping in mind that we need to have, in one hand, digital skills when we are speaking about coalition of jobs, but in another, when we are speaking about empowerment of people, today's people who are now on the ground and suffering from health problems, to use digital instruments and to have mobile apps, mobile phones, digital, platforms, and tablets, and so on in their hands, and to be connected with primary care facilities, with secondary care facilities. And it is also, we know very well, we have a lot of actors and different levels of responsibilities. Just Victor mentioned national government's competence. Yes, okay. But who can coordinate governments to act together? For example, addressing cross-border challenges. Lithuania, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Romania, Germany, and so on. Who can tell us, or Hungary, who can tell us how can we improve interoperability to cooperate? That is a question. I think it's really a big challenge for all of us to understand that now we need to rethink our multi-level management issues when we are speaking about digital skills and when we are speaking about digital health and when we are speaking about empowerment of people.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Chris Ruff, if I may, from Digital Europe. I was very struck by what Remco said about providing 10,000 free training sessions and that he had problems finding 10,000 people to take up free training sessions. What should the digital companies do to cross that bridge? It goes back to the issue I've been banging on about you cannot force people to take up training, but they do need it for themselves and for the wider economy.
It's an interesting question. I don't know why. I mean, digital companies, we are obviously supportive of any of these activities. And I don't know. I mean, we obviously have communications companies within our membership as well. And I think this can help. A lot of a lot of the jobs that people find and the way that people access the labor market are through tools and digital tools. I'm not sure that that's where the problem is. I don't know where it lies. It's a bit trickier than just saying that. So it's a broader societal thing, but I think at least public sector as well needs to be pushing people in the direction of these kind of schemes. And of course, digital companies have to play their role as well. But I don't really have a silver bullet answer for you there, Joe, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, I'm going to go around the group now, because we've less than 10 minutes left to give your thoughts about big idea, if you have one, and you guys are paid enough to have big ideas. How to improve digital skills. Remco Brouwer from Randstad. What's your one big idea to help improve digital skills in about a minute?
No pressure. No pressure whatsoever. I think there are at the European level all sorts of labor standards with job titles. There's this ESCO framework that you might have heard of. Typically, that is a couple of years out of date, right? I think if we would have a central, let's say, repository or European aligned job and skills ontology or something in the center, then creating jobs and finding jobs and matching jobs will be a lot easier for everyone. Today, all the companies need to figure this out for themselves, right? So I think it would increase our competitiveness as a region if we would upgrade that and make it a little bit more modern, because typically they're like 4 years out, right? A COVID tester is not part of the ISCO framework today, although we've had them for 6 months now, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That was about a minute, Remco. I'm impressed. Angel, did you hear that? Do you have one big idea that you think will improve digital skills that you can give to us?
I'm not sure if it's a big idea or wishful thinking, but certainly, I mean, healthcare and education are national competencies. Challenge, as very well said before, is European. And I think, to me, we need to look at both the supply side and the demand side, so the healthcare professionals and the patients, and how actually we bring both of them alongside. So, as I said before, I think we need to be more liquid in the way the skill sets are defined, and maybe that's the opportunity for Europe, is to basically define the medical curricula and also the healthcare at European level, and then obviously you can customize, you can adapt, but I think there is a need for a European level action here.
Okay, thank you very much. Who haven't I spoken to? Griffin from Vodafone. One big idea, please, Joe.
Okay.
You need to
I need some digital skills of myself. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. You're on.
Yeah, I'd like to just briefly talk about one big idea that we've had at Vodafone and we've deployed. And that speaks to the problem around digital careers and skills orientation. And we did some research a couple of years back that showed that in schools in Europe and indeed globally, young people aren't actually being told that there are careers in digital society. So we have gamers, but they don't realize that there's a huge industry there that they can work in. We developed a tool that skills and interests with digital careers, and that's been very successful to date with over 500,000 young people using it. But what it really does is help young people go from the point of view of thinking, I don't know what I to there is a career path in the digital society that I can take, and we point them to training and jobs in that industry. And I think it speaks to some of the problems that Remco talked about, that we need to help young people orientate towards jobs in the digital society and let them know that these jobs exist, because they're new. We don't have our dads and mums who are necessarily in that industry like we did with traditional sectors. So that would be our big idea, to really help at that careers orientation level at school.
Okay, Victor, one big idea that you think will...
It's the digital area, like I said. The 10% of the relaunch plan for education, training, upskilling people, European technologies. Like I said, again, we should gamify education, make digital skills easy for everyone accessible. It can be a tablet, it can be a computer, it should be everywhere. So I think if we understand that, we can make it. And there are, like everyone has said, a lot of clever ideas across Europe, but we need to use them and upgrade them at European level.
Well, that was quick. Thank you very much, Victor. Vytenis, e-health and the digital divide there. If you had one big idea or one big solution that you would like to see, what would it be?
Yes. My idea is, please think about possibility to develop partnership or network of networks, keeping in mind to keep people as healthy as possible, as long as possible, using digital health and empowering them to use our digital solutions. We need to think about broad collider of multi-sectorial and multi-functional collider of digital technologies moving forward in a way to strengthen people's health.
Great. Alison, I think you're going to have the last word on this one. And because you're last and because you're a lady, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
One of the benefits of being in the minority in a panel. Great, thank you. So the idea that I want to share is one that we announced in July. We're going to start exploring it, and it is the idea of the individual learning account. And there's a few countries that have a bit more experience of this. France is one. The Netherlands, I think, is also having a look at this. Basically, the idea is it's a kind of entitlement, either of money or in hours of training, that each person of working age can take with them throughout their career, from job to job and in and out of periods of employment. And it's a way really to try and tackle this challenge of getting more adults into learning, and particularly the ones who maybe are less keen to jump on training opportunities themselves. So the account is one thing, but it actually ties in with, I think, all the suggestions that the other panelists have been making around better understanding of what each individual can do as a starting point. We need a kind of skills scan. What can I do well, less well? We need real-time skills intelligence, which are the skills that are actually required out there in different parts of the labour market. How are they changing? So we need to use big data and smart skills intelligence. We need training quality, training that actually leads somewhere. It's motivating for people to engage in, and they can then immediately use it and apply it. And we need a system that captures the outcomes of that training so that I can take it with me from company to company. I'm not stuck in a company or a sector. What I learn this year, I can build it into my CV and take it forward for the rest of my career. So all of this, we're starting to explore it at EU level under the heading of an individual learning account. And I think something along those lines for digital skills and other skills can potentially be a game changer.
Thank you very much, Alison. We've had a huge array of ideas, whether it's a central repository, a supply and demand side solution, EU-wide. Young people need guidance in and an individual, very from Alison as well. Everybody in this panel hopes, of course, that the recovery fund, 750 billion euros worth, some of these ideas and close the gaps that we discussed today. On behalf of Matthew Willis, from Fourtold, who had to step out, I'm going to close the session and thank OPP, or One Policy Place, for letting us host this session on this platform, the 2020 platform of thought leadership and idea, that forum. I want to thank all of our panelists: Angel Martin from Johnson&Johnson, Remco Brouwer from Randstad, and Joe Griffin, vote of Chris, Europe, Victor Negrescu, MEP from Romania, Vytenis Andriukaitis, the former commissioner and now with the UHC, and Alison Crabb from Scotland and from the European Commission. On behalf of myself, Joe Lynham, stay well, all of you out there, and hopefully we've learned something today. In the meantime, stay safe.